He writes that he saw this patch in junior ROTC room in his junior ROTC room at school. And he's wondering, what in the fuck is it?
Well, the answer's simple, really, because I'm a Marine, and Semper Fi is our motto. Numbnuts? You can't say numbnuts on... Okay.
One is...
How we doing? Flesh maggots. Good to see everybody. First off, real quick, just a huge thank you to everyone who's supported me along the way. That's kind of been my go-to euphemism or like umbrella term for it, but really anyone who's ever fucking given a shit about me. Had a little bit of an existential episode last night. Nothing too bad, but all in all, it just was one of those moments you get every couple months where you have to just sit back and be appreciative of those in your life. And, you know, whether you've been watching for a day or a year, or if you're in my own fucking life and you've been here to help kind of get me through all this fucking chaos, I fucking love you. So thank you. So that gay shit out of the way. That was some Arlie Ermy. Rest in peace. I don't know why every piece of media around us has become so soft. I'm not trying to go too far off the fucking rabbit hole here into a different tangent that has nothing to do with the video, but there were comments from the Rage compilation. Someone in particular, I can't remember your name, and I'm sorry that I can't, but they were saying how great it is to hear someone say the word fuck without any form of censorship or dodging of the actual word. And that shit ain't going away. If people can't exist hearing the word fuck or pussy or shit or cunt or fuck, I don't want to live in that world, quite frankly. And I will forever be the contrarian. And one more little side note before I get into the main crux of the video. I will be making another video for my second channel that I haven't touched in months called Sam's Illusions, that I will talk about something that I've coined. I don't know if it already exists or not, but I'm coining it, and I'm calling it the living as an asymmetrist, someone who basically flies by the seat of their own pants by capitalizing on opportunity that has asymmetrical risk to reward, and that's kind of who I built myself around. So if you're interested in that, that will be on the second channel at some point in the near future. Anyhow, let's get into this shit show. I'm talking about the new SEC filing related to the, basically it's, what is it, 003? I don't know. It's supposed to serve as a form of repo within the equities market. I saw part of Bigham's video, which is great. I will link that. I don't have any of the specifics. I've barely actually even read up on it because I already know where all this is headed. So I'm going to speculate on it with things that haven't even been said yet from the SEC or any form of clearing corporation, whether that's the NSCC, the OCC, blah, 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 blah. I think I already know where all this is headed, so I'm going to try to make it English for everyone. Before I do that, I'm going to hit my sweet, sweet nicotine. All right. Okay. There's no need for me to fucking even have a screen recording either, and I don't have my lighting. There we go. Okay, so what the fuck is going on? I think that the core members of the market, that being the NSCC, the National Securities Clearing Corporation, the OCC, the Options Clearing Corporation, the DTCC, the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation, the DTC, the fucking whatever, that's kind of the hub to all these spoke entities. ICE, which is the International Clearing something. All of these fancy fucking terms in different entities for different purposes. It's all literally just excess verbiage, excess labels to make the process of markets more complex. And when shit goes tits up, they have some other exotic entity to point the finger at. That's what all these things are for. There's really no reason for it other than to confuse people and leverage the confusion created by excess labeling. And that's also something that goes on in society, by the way. that's a different conversation for a different day. Okay. So what is being proposed essentially is a market, another layer to the market for can kicking, is essentially what it all boils down to. So the NSCC, the National Securities and Clearing Corporation, has a program called the CNS, Continuous Net Settlement Program. So as market makers or as any market participants have inventory that needs to be delivered or received, so stock or options, these all get settled at the end of the day. There's a tally up of everyone that is either net short or net long, and then collectively the members will output a specific number. So if the majority of the members are net short on something, there will be a net short aggregated by everybody. And then members can contribute into that to make them net neutral or go net long or blah, 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 blah. It all has to do with essentially distributing whatever the market is doing amongst all of the members. It's a collective means of facilitating liquidity in the markets. Now what they're doing with it is they're democratizing, don't we all love that fucking word? They're democratizing the can kicking market. So if someone has a bunch of inventory that is owed and they don't have the means to deliver on that, whether that is because they can't or they do not want to induce adverse market conditions, there is now a new entity at which can be traded. And this is just like stock, it's just like options, except this is just for market participants. And I think they've been coined as SFTs. It's probably security fungible token or some bullshit, I don't know. What it's doing though is it's making a liquid instrument out of IOUs is what it's doing. I think that any of these members who are able to call the shots in what happens with market regulation and process have now understood that there is a gleaming issue with can kicking, whether that is FTDs, whether that's naked shorting, whether that's short exempt volume, et cetera, et cetera. I imagine that all of the I'm stuck between saying fails or failure to delivers. I'm gonna stick with the latter. I think that they have noticed that the failure to delivers that have existed for decades at this point, I imagine that those are still somewhere in there. Basically everything that was post Reg Show, Reg Show was a big piece of regulation implemented by the SEC that all had to do with kind of getting a grips on naked short selling, but never actually did. That essentially grandfathered in all of the fails that happened prior to that being enforced, in which case someone still has all of the fails that have ever existed on their books somewhere. And I think that they're starting to cause a problem, in which case now you have this new exotic market being created amongst all of the market participants in which you can convert these IOUs into some instrument that can be traded and now produce more liquidity, because that's what everything's about, right? Not about fair and just pricing and price discovery of publicly traded companies, but rather just liquidity of, we got liquidity for everything. Fucking dorks, Jesus, fuck. Sorry, my hair is drying and I'm trying to make sure it doesn't dry funny. Okay. So what does this mean? Is MOASS off the table? Is this and that? Well, no. I'm going to be honest with you. I think MOASS has been off the table for a long time, at least in the foreseeable future. People are going to lose their shit by me saying that, but let me at least get a few more words into it before you do. I'm not saying that MOASS will never happen. I'm saying that right now, the concerns by anyone managing markets has nothing to do with a short squeeze taking place. They're more worried about making sure that capital markets still exist because they understand how much of an issue those who have been the golden children of this entire fucking Ponzi scheme have created, in which they have to now make sure that the entire market is okay. There was a citation, if you will, of a squeeze taking place from a fire sale somewhere in the document of whatever this stupid fucking reg was. I don't know if that had to do with a MOASS-like event. What I'm saying, though, is I don't think that they're talking about a squeeze of any particular stock. I think they're talking about a squeeze of liquidity in general. I'm not saying MOASS will never happen. I'm saying that within this context, within this scope, please do not get too bombarded by them saying the word squeeze in it. As far as me saying that MOASS has been off the table for a long time, what I mean by that is there is a mechanic that has been abused by market makers for a long time. Whether that is explicit or implicit, I don't know. As in, an explicit version of a mechanic being abused could be short exempt volume. An implicit or an abstract, if you will, type mechanic could be short exempt volume, but instead of issuing short shares, they're issuing short shares into call contracts that are being sold to produce downward pressure, and now they're able to use that call of some sort to create more short exempt volume and get a cyclical nature out of it. I don't know. It all goes back to financial alchemy. Some people have heard me say that term. If you haven't heard of it, go look it up. But that's kind of where I think all this is headed. I think this new reg is trying to address what has already been a sore thumb for a while, but now they're producing a market for it, which is what you typically see. Anytime that there's some fuck up that is made, there is a market made for it. You know, like taxpayers and their 401ks, their pension funds, you know, turned into a bailout because, you know, liquidity. So here we go again. I guess put simply, if there is some giant balance that is owed in a particular security, now a participant can wrap up the security and turn it into a bond, essentially. That's what this seems to be. If I owe someone $1 million, I can now just say, you know what? I'm going to go to someone else. I'm going to get $1 million from them, and then I'm going to pay them an interest on it, and I'm going to deliver that $1 million to who I originally owed it to, and now we can just roll this forward. That seems to be what is happening. In terms of what this means for a squeeze, it doesn't matter how many regulations you come up with or how many amendments to pre-existing regulations you come up with. When it comes down to a market collapsing or a market going through a catastrophic event, regulations will never catch what is supposed to be caught. It doesn't matter what fucking entity comes up with a reg. It doesn't matter if that reg is enforced or not. The securities that are affected throughout a catastrophic event are left in the dust normally. Now, the only time that doesn't happen is when that particular security was at the fulcrum point of the catastrophic event. So whatever is causing the regulation to be proposed and edited and drafted and then pushed and then blah, 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 I guess we're going to find out if this particular whiskey can be drank, let alone bought. I guess I'm going to use some of Ryan Cohen's language here. In other words, if this is what we all have thought for it to be and what all of the research and due diligence has pointed out to be, then the securities affected should be the fulcrum point that I was speaking about, in which case we're going to see if whoever is really fucking all of this up has the nuts or not. So what does this all mean? We're going to find out if we're going to get something out of this, or if this will just be another 2008 and we see markets collapse and implode, with the 99% being the bag holders. You know, the most unfortunate part about this is the more that you dig and the more you research, the less optimistic you typically become. And then when you have glimpses that produce optimism, that optimism becomes more aggressive. The more you dig, the more you wish you never got involved in this. I have a lot of friends ask me, like, you know, what do you do? Or how can you afford some things? And I tell them that I trade stocks. And they're like, oh, how do you do that? Where do I start? And I tell them, you don't want to be a part of this. you know, when you start to see dark pool orders that are really odd the day before, you know, some stock crashes, or you see an alert go out on UnusualWhales of a ton of puts on a day before earnings, and then the headlines of the earnings is that they're supposed to be, you know, a hit, the company's going to do great, and then you see them collapse 25% the next day. You know, I fucking hate this. Is the squeeze still on the table? Yes, I would say there is. Within the next months, we're going to really see what is left to it. Back during the summer of last year, when I was live every day, right? One of the devices I would use to illustrate the urgency of doing more DD was what happened in January of 21 became a crime scene. There's a crime scene every day from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern. And while other people are yelling and shouting, or people, I should say, right? Most of this shit is just bots. But whether it's people or bots are telling you DD's done, no dates, no DD, those people either aren't real or do not have any of your interests in mind and are just trying to rob you of education. I had said also that every day that goes by is another day that the perpetrators can clean up the crime scene on their own. And this is what I had meant this entire time, and I was very explicit about it back then. But this is why digging and finding things that have been unnoticed is so important. And again, I'm not saying that this is off the table. But throughout all of this, if you have taken the time to just research even a little bit, you will find that the payoff of that is much greater than any squeeze will ever be for the rest of your life. I hope that everyone thus far has at least been able to secure that for themselves. Going forward, we need more eyes. We need more eyes. People like Bigums, people like Randall Cornett, people like Wired, people like Trey, even Matt. It doesn't matter if you're someone who's at the surface or all the way in the fucking darkest of depths. If there are at least eyes looking, that's all that matters. So, I'm going to leave it at that.